Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing? Inshallah, all good. Uh, I know, guys, it has been so hectic. It's so tiring, but you guys, mashallah, you're almost done. You just have the GIT final, and khalas, so we're gonna enjoy your long vacation. First, I just would like to thank you all, guys. Mashallah, you all did it. You're approaching the last final of the first semester. You're almost done with this year, inshallah, yani, the first half. And yeah, so today, inshallah, I'll just be going over the cross sections. I know cross sections are easy. You just have to highlight. Okay, this is the structure. This is okay, tamam. But I'll just try to yani, give you my approach to studying them. How to exactly correlate them with the clinical and some basic anatomy things, because they don't only ask about the structure and marking the structure. They also ask about the basic anatomy, basic clinical, and all of these kinds of things. Okay, so without further delays, I'll just be displaying the questions. I'll be orienting you. I have some questions that I have prepared. So okay, so I'll just have some questions that I prepared earlier. One second. So without further delays, I know, guys, you're not here. Salaha, I'm so sad that it's through Zoom, but yeah, it's better for me and for you, the guys, because your exam is approaching, and also we have final next week, so that's why. And yes, let's get started. I'll just share my screen. I'll be using, by the way, my my iPad to highlight the things. Um, okay. Okay, I hope it's showing. Inshallah. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, bismillah. So guys, let's just start with the orienting ourselves. So I'm gonna use the, just wanna know if it's working. Okay, good, it's working. So here, basically the way that they approach some questions, they are going to highlight the structures and just put a marking, highlight them, or whatever they ask you about the structure, and other questions, clinical or basic anatomy questions related to the mark. Okay, so I'm not sure if you guys are required to know the level thing, but I saw a question the previous questions past exams about it, so just try to orient yourself about it. Okay, and I'll tell you a simple way how to approach it. Okay, so first let's start with the first one, which is going to be T8. Guys, obviously T8 most likely it's not gonna come in the exam. Okay, so just don't take these words from me. I'll just tell you what the most important things and the ones that I myself we got it in our exam and the previous exams, just to focus more on them. Okay, but study everything. Tamam. Let's just start by orientation. Here we have here we have anterior, here we have posterior, here we have the right side, and here we have the left side. Okay, now why do they put these things here? It's just for you to orient yourself where exactly the cross section has been done. Okay, so now let's start with the first cross section. So I'll just be going over the highlighted stuff. The first one is going to be here. This is basically the heart. Okay, so how to know that this is T8? We just see the lungs. Here we have the lung, and this is probably the lung, and here we have the heart. So this is T8. T8. We see the heart. خلاص T8. تمام. So this is basically the heart. Here we have the inferior vena cava, and here basically we have number 13, the aorta. Okay, this is a simple cross section. I'll just go over it quickly. I'm not gonna ask any questions about it. Okay, so now let's just move on to T9. Now, what's the difference between T8 and T9 is that in T8 we saw the heart. T9 doesn't have a heart but has a lung. So here we have lung and we don't have the heart. Okay, so lung, liver, and no heart at all. Okay, so let's start with the first. Let's just go from the right side to the left side. Tamam. The first thing here we have the liver. This is basically the liver, and obviously there would be a vessel that we know basically from our basic anatomy that's going to pass through the liver. Okay, and this vessel is going to be basically the inferior vena cava. Tamam. Then we have the here we have the esophagus. Then from basic anatomy, we have the esophagus. Behind the esophagus, we're gonna have a vessel, and this vessel is most likely going to be the aorta. Okay, so here we have the aorta, 13. 3 is the esophagus, and 2, I'm not sure how you can memorize this to be honest, but it's gonna be the diaphragm. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna ask 10 questions. Pause the video, then try to answer them, and then resume, and you'll hear the answer from me. Okay. So the first question is that let's just imagine that we have a point that's basically at this side. Okay. Number 3. Question 1: name the marked structure. Answer: esophagus. Okay. So now here's the second question: name the 3 areas and levels by which this structure is going to be compressed. Okay. So now pause the video. Then, okay, the answer is going to be, there are 3 main things where the esophagus is going to be compressed. Okay, the first one is going to be at the level of the C6 cervical vertebra, where the pharynx is going to join the esophagus. Okay, the second one is going to be at the level of T4 and T5, by where we have the aortic arch as well as the left main bronchus. Okay, the third one is going to be T10, where it passes through the diaphragm. Tamam? So here we have, basically, this gives us to another third question, which is going to be at which level does the esophagus pass through the diaphragm, which is basically structure 2 in this case, and it's going to be at the level of T10. Okay, so now we went over some questions about the esophagus. As we said, here we have the descending aorta, and here we have the diaphragm. So how to know that this is T9? Lung, liver, diaphragm. T8, the heart. Okay, now let's just move on to the T10. Now T10, we have an important thing, which is going to be the stomach that's going to arise, right? So how can we know that this is T10? By looking at here we have obviously the liver, we have the lung, and the stomach. Okay, so liver, lung, and stomach, T10 directly. Okay, so liver, lung, stomach, T10 directly. Okay, so let's start with the orientation. Here we have from the right side, we have here the liver. This is going to be the liver, the vessel that's passing through it, the inferior vena cava, the esophagus, and the descending aorta. And here we have basically the stomach. Okay, so basically this is the stomach, and here basically, to be specific, it's the fundus part of the stomach. Okay, this is T10. All good? T10, it's just straightforward. Here we have the esophagus. Now, this is basically the aorta. Now, I want to ask you some questions about the aorta. Question 1, basically, let's highlight. So you pass by the station, you see that there's a mark on this vessel. Let's just be more specific. You have this pin, okay? And asking you to name this vessel. This vessel is going to be the aorta, to be more specific, the descending aorta. Okay? And it's basically in the part of the abdominal aorta by now. Now, let's ask you the first question. As we said, name. The second question is going to be, at which level does the aorta pass through the diaphragm? The answer is going to be T12, okay? So now, the second question, name 2 main branches of this artery and the vertebral level they will arise from, okay? So the first branch and the main branch is going to be the celiac trunk, which arises at the level of T12 and L1. The second one is going to be superior mesenteric artery at the level of L1, okay? Now, let's move on to the, here we have the stomach, and as we said, the lung. So T10, liver, lung, stomach, okay? Moving on to T11. Now, T11 is kind of interesting and new. Why? Because we have an important structure that's going to arise, and it's relevant to our block, the GI block, which is going to be the spleen, okay? So how can we know that it's T11? We have the most obvious structures are going to be stomach. Are going to be the liver, the stomach, and the spleen. Okay. Now, T10 we had liver, stomach, lung. T11, liver, stomach, spleen. Okay, and it's different than T12. We're gonna see T12. Tamam? So let's just go over the labels. Here we have the liver. Here we have the inferior vena cava. And here we have the descending aorta, abdominal aorta, and here we have the fundus of the stomach, and then lastly we have the spleen. So now here comes the other question. So I'll just put a point here. Now, question one: name the structure by which the marker is pointing at, and it's going to be the fundus of the stomach. Now, the second question that's going to be basically about the stomach is going to be asking, now, which structure is name the structures that are forming the stomach bed, okay? Now, there are some structures that are found in this cross section, and they are relevant to this question, which is basically with the stomach bed, and it's going to be basically the spleen here. Okay, so they just ask you, for example, just bring a marker here, asking about these two structures. So the first question is going to be asked about the name, which is basically stomach, and the spleen, and the relationship between both. Okay, so the spleen is located posteriorly to the stomach. Okay. And this is basically the question that's basically about the stomach. This is T11. So as we said, T11, spleen, stomach, and liver. Tamam? Now moving on to T12. T12 has upper border and lower border. Now guys, from T8 to L1, L2, it's so important because they ask about it, okay? Most commonly, the questions are going to be from there, just between us, okay? But go over everything. Tamam. Now let's start with the first one, which is T12, the upper border. Okay, so how can we know that this is the upper border and it's not the lower border? Now let's just appreciate here. We have upper and lower. Okay, so the lower border has the splenic flexure over here, while the upper border doesn't have it. Okay, this is the main difference between them. Tamam. So you can see the kidneys, the liver, the spleen, the stomach, and there's no the splenic flexure. Okay. Now let's just orient ourselves. Here we have this is all is going to be the liver. Here we have the gallbladder, and here we have the right kidney. Here we have the inferior vena cava. Here we have the right cross of the diaphragm, left cross of the diaphragm. Here we have the abdominal aorta. Here we have the left kidney. Here we have the spleen, and then the body of the stomach. Okay. Now, just one thing to note regarding the levels, guys. Just don't try to memorize them. Okay. So just try to understand. We're at the level of T12. What do we have at T12? Obviously, we're gonna have, for example, the kidneys, the GI stuff, the liver, the stomach, the spleen, for example. Okay, so this is basically how to approach the level thing. Tamam. Now here I'm gonna highlight this. So as we said, this is basically the stomach. Okay, so now name a vessel that's found at the lesser curvature of the stomach. This is the question one. Answer is going to be the left gastric artery. Okay, so now let's just ask about another question. Another question is that a clinical scenario, for example, that's basically saying that we have an ulcer at the posterior surface of the stomach. Okay, now this ulcer has could basically cause a damage in which of the following vessels? They will bring you multiple choice questions, for example, or just name the vessel that's going to be damaged, and this vessel is going to be the splenic artery. Okay, one second. So going back, as we said, that here we have the stomach, and the vessel that's going to be most likely damaged when we have a posterior ulcer of the stomach is going to be the splenic artery. Okay. Now, yeah, this is the question that I have from this cross section, and yeah, this is the T12 upper border. Okay. Now let's just move on to talk about T12 lower border. As we said, we have the kidneys, the liver, the spleen, the stomach, as well as the most important thing is going to be the splenic flexure. Okay, this is basically how to know that this is T12. Now let's start from right to left. Here we have the liver, here we have the gallbladder, and this is also the liver, obviously. Now here we have the common bile duct, the portal vein, as well as the common hepatic artery. Okay, so bile duct, common bile duct, portal vein, and lastly is going to be the common hepatic artery. Okay, now here basically we have the splenic artery that's going all the way there. Okay, so here we have the splenic artery, which is basically this one that's going to be 16. Okay, now going to here we have the inferior vena cava. Here we have the right kidney, right cross of the diaphragm, left cross of the diaphragm, and here we have the abdominal aorta. And 16 is going to be a most important branch of the descending abdominal aorta, which is going to be the celiac trunk. Okay, so here is basically the celiac trunk. Here is the descending aorta. And then going here, we have the left kidney, we have the spleen, the ascending flexure, as well as basically the body of the stomach. Okay, so let me just see if I have any question about this. Yeah, guys, one thing about the celiac trunk, they may basically bring a question asking about the branches, and you have to memorize the vertebral levels of the celiac trunk, the superior mesenteric artery, as well as the inferior mesenteric artery. They're so important. Okay, now let's move on. This is basically the T12 lower border, as we said. Yeah, I have a question about the T12. Let's say, for example, we have a marker here. So name the structure, and you're gonna say that this is the gallbladder. One, two about the gallbladder. Name a clinical condition that can arise in the gallbladder and mention a sign that you would see when doing physical examination. This is the question, and the answer is going to be cholecystitis, and the sign is called Murphy's sign. Okay, cholecystitis, cholelithiasis, whatever you write. Okay, now and I remember that we got a question about cholecystitis in our exam, in GI exam, so make sure to know it. Okay, and then that's pretty much it in the T12 lower border. Okay. No, I wish I could ask you if there are any questions, but anyways, let's just move on to L1. Now in L1 we have basically more complicated things. We have the colon, which are going to see the large intestine, as well as the small intestine is going to arise as well. Okay, so let's just, and L1 basically is an important part. Okay, so now let's just go from right to left. Here we have the part of the colon, and which is basically called the hepatic flexure. So as we saw here, we have part of the ascending colon, which is the splenic flexure, and here we have the hepatic flexure. Okay, now this is the hepatic flexure. Here we have the pylorus part of the stomach. Here we have the body of the stomach. Okay, and then here D, which is basically going to be the duodenum. Okay, now what do we have here? We have the inferior vena cava. Here we have the pancreas, and this is basically the pancreas. Let me just highlight it. Okay, here we have the common bile duct. Here we have the portal vein, and now let's just by the common sense. Okay, so if you see a structure that's basically passing by in the midline, it's most likely going to be the pancreas. Okay, and this is, here we know by the previous ones that this is the stomach and leading to all the way into the duodenum and the pylorus and so on and so forth. Okay, also, as we said, we have the hepatic flexure here, so obviously we're going to have the rest of the colon. Here we have the transverse colon and the descending colon. The way I remember the colon is basically, colon is the area where we have the feces. Okay, so, and it kind of look like a feces if you see the color here, the color here, the color here. So this is basically a trick how to know the colon. Okay, so as we said, here we have the hepatic flexure, transverse colon, and the descending colon. And just one thing about the colon, it's going to arise like this. So starting from the right, here we have the ascending hepatic flexure, transverse, splenic flexure, and then the descending colon going all the way to this point. Okay, this is basically the way that's situated in the cross sections. Here we have celiac trunk, as we said. At the level of L1 now, here we had the celiac trunk. Now we have the superior mesenteric artery. Okay, most probably they won't complicate you that much. Okay, but in case one of them comes in the exam and asking about a question, let's just try to know how to approach this question and to know that this is superior mesenteric, not this electron. Okay, so T12 lower border, we can see that we have the liver. Okay, we have the liver, we have the splenic flexure, the spleen, and there is a branch of the celiac of the abdominal aorta. So this is going to be the celiac trunk. When we don't have here we have the liver, that's going to be small, but here we have the hepatic flexure, we have transverse colon, descending colon, and we don't have the spleen here. We don't have the spleen. This is basically going to be most likely superior mesenteric artery because it's going to be lower than the celiac trunk. Okay, and it's going to be at the level of L1. And yeah, that's pretty much it about the L1. Okay. Now moving on to talk about the L1 lower border. This was L1 upper border, and this is going to be the L1 lower border. How can we know this? It basically has this characteristic sign, which is basically shown over here, where we have this opening area that's connected to the kidneys. Okay. Now, let's start from the right to the left. Here we have as we said, we have the colon is going into this shape. So here we have the ascending colon, transverse colon. Here we have the body of the stomach. Here we have also the transverse colon, and then the descending colon. Okay, so just look the color of the feces, color of the feces, color of the feces, color of the feces. Okay, now in the middle previously we had the pancreas. Just know that this is the color of the pancreas. The orange color is most likely pointing out the small intestine, which is going to be here the duodenum, and jejunum. Okay. Now this area, this is going to be the right kidney. Here we have the renal veins. So here, let's just imagine that we have this kidney, and there is a structure arising from a vein, and it's pouring into the inferior vena cava. Similar way here we have the left kidney, the left renal vein, and pouring into the inferior vena cava. Okay. 13 is going to be the aorta. Tamam? Tamam. Now let's move on to L2. L2, here we have most likely L2 is going to ask you about if they bring it, they're going to ask you about this area, which is going to be the muscles. So let's start with identifying the muscles. Here we have the rectus abdominis, and here we have the external oblique, and here we have the internal oblique, and here we have the transverse abdominis. Okay, just memorize that order, and if they get a question about this section, most likely they could ask about this. Okay, so this is the ascending colon, transverse colon, color of feces, descending colon, color of feces. The orange color is going to be the small intestine. Here we have the jejunum, the duodenum. Here we have the vessel. Basically, this is going to be the inferior vena cava. This is the abdominal aorta. Okay. Now this is L2. So L2 most likely they are most basically interesting in this area. Okay. Now moving on to L3. L3, how to know that this is L3? So we just mainly have the large intestine and small intestine, ascending, transverse, descending. Color of feces. Orange color is going to be basically the small intestine, area of the small intestine, area of the small intestine. Okay, this is basically going to be the inferior vena cava, and here we have the descending abdominal aorta. Now moving on to L4. L4 we have the ascending. Basically, I'm going fast through these because I don't remember I saw questions about them. If they're going to bring questions, they most likely going to ask about either the arrangement of the muscles or the basically just what's this part, you say transverse colon, what's this, you say small intestine, for example. If you see orange in the middle, it's most likely going to be the duodenum. Okay, this is basically the questions that are going to be from here. Ascending colon, inferior vena cava, abdominal aorta, descending colon. Okay, and then the last one is going to be color of feces, ascending colon, color of feces, descending colon. And if they bring this, they're going to ask about the ileum, and a highlight marker of this section is going to be this area and this area. You know that this is basically L5, and it's basically where we have the ileum. Okay, so ileum, L5, and this is basically the things. Okay. Now, this was pretty much it about the cross sections. There's one thing I would just want to mention. Okay, so let's just say we had this scenario, this cross section, and basically an arrow pointing out to this structure. You would say that this is the liver. Okay, so here's question 1. Mention 2 tissues found in the visceral surface of the right lobe. Okay, any two tissues. For example, you would say the right kidney and the right superior gland. Okay. Now, another question: name three structures forming the portal triad. We have the bile duct, portal vein, and the proper hepatic artery. Okay. Now, moving on to talk about the sagittal sections. The sagittal sections here, let's start with this one. Okay. Now, we're gonna start with this one. Tamam. Now, let's start with the first one here. We have the left renal vein. Here we have the superior mesenteric artery, and here we have the superior mesenteric vein. Okay. Now, unfortunately, I tried my best to bring a possible way just to know how can we know these are the vessels, but I couldn't. So just good luck memorizing them. Okay. Here we have the portal vein, and number 6 is going to be the pancreas. Okay. Now let's just move on to this one. Here, 13, we have the aorta. Let's just start from the top, going bottom. So here, number 4 is going to be the liver. Here, 6 is going to be the pancreas. 7B is going to be the stomach. And here is going to be the colon, as we can appreciate, kind of color of feces, color of the feces. So it's going to be the transverse colon. Okay. Now, this was pretty much it about this area. Okay. I don't remember, honestly, having questions about the mid-sagittal things, but just go over them. Okay. Now, moving on to talk about this one. Here we have the spleen. Here we have the stomach. Okay. So stomach, posterior to it, we have the spleen. Here we have the kidney. Here we have the kidney. And most likely is going to be the left kidney because I can see the spleen and the stomach. Here we have the transverse colon. Here we have parts of the small intestine. They're orange. Descending colon. It's basically color of the feces. And this one basically is asking about the sigmoid. Okay. Now, moving on to continue talking about the last. Here we have the last one, which is going to be here we have the liver. Here we have the kidney. This is basically most likely the right side. Yeah, because of the liver and the kidney. So liver, right side, right kidney. Here we have the small intestine, orange. Sorry, 6 is going to be the pancreas. I kind of missed it. How can, okay, it's obviously right because we can't have the small intestine up to here. Here we have the pancreas. Here we have the small intestine. And here we have the ascending colon. Okay. And yes, this was yes, okay. So this was pretty much it for now. I really hope that I was able to deliver it in the best way possible, and inshallah, just a few advices about it. The cross sections I used to take my iPad or the laptop and then just highlight, name it, highlight, name it, highlight, name it, highlight, name it, highlight, name it. Go over it more than 1-2 times. You will be able to memorize them. Okay. And try to relate them to silly things. For example, the colon for the color of the feces and so on, so forth. Okay. I really wish you all the best and good luck in your exam. And inshallah, guys, you all are going to do amazing. GI anatomy was one of the favorite anatomy, to be honest, for me. And yes, I can't say much. Good luck, and okay, and yeah, include us in your prayers because we have we have an upcoming exam and it's so bad. So yeah, thank you so much and see you. And if you have any question, just take my number and phone me, text me through email. I don't mind. Stop me in the university and ask me. I don't mind. Okay. So this was it, and yeah, see you.